Welcome to the Formidable Genealogist Studio, and I am joined today by Grant Din, who is a colleague, and I have done an NGS, National Genealogical Society presentation with him a few years ago where we all had to do, was it like 7 minutes each or something, and we had to do that big compilation.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I wanted to talk to Grant today about some of the proposed National Archives location closure. So before we get into that, Grant, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your background?
Sure. Thanks, Jen. My name is Grant Din. I live in Oakland, California, and I'm a um, genealogist and longtime nonprofit staffer out here. And right now, I'm very involved with a group called Save Our National Archives. And a lot of us have used the National Archives in San Bruno and also in Chicago to pull up primary sources, documents of showing immigration. Um, there's a lot of Native American records, I think, definitely at San Bruno and probably at Chicago. And the staff at NARA got a um, notice about a month ago saying San Bruno and Chicago are closed, and the federal record centers as well, which are non-historic documents in general, and but they would be closed and their content sent to sites around the country. They didn't specify where. They didn't say anything about the care of the documents or access that people will have once they're moved. None of that. And there's no public notice, and we're up in arms and organizing to try to make sure this doesn't happen.
Right. Now, what has the public announcement been so far? Like, are there dates involved for when everything is officially closed? Have you heard anything from employees? Like, what is any timeline?
Yeah, well, if you go to the National Archives websites you look at National Archives in Chicago, National Archives in San Francisco, there's just this tiny little notice saying they will be closed in a few years. That's all. Nothing about where to find the documents. And there have been no public announcements besides those little blurbs on the websites. And for sites that have so much historic information, it's very I don't want just not respectful to the local researchers, and very people are wondering how do I find out more about my family? There's no mention of accessibility wherever it will be, wherever the documents will be, and what will happen in the interim when during the possible moving process. We're talking, yeah. I'll stop right there.
Right. So back before I really got involved in researching, I did not understand that there were all of these satellite locations for the National Archives. I just thought there was the DC one and that was it. I didn't realize that that's where you'd go for like a lot of the older records, and then you would contact St. Louis for the more recent military records. Can you give us more information about what is in Chicago and what is in San Bruno, which is like San Francisco area?
Yeah, I don't know as much about Chicago, but I do know there are a lot of immigration files as well. And according to their website, from maybe 10 Midwestern states. So not just Illinois, but the broader area might include Minneapolis. I'm not sure, but I know on their website it says there are Chinese exclusion files, for example, files that were created when people were trying to enter the U.S. during the Exclusion Acts, um, as well as a lot of other court records, and a lot of things that have not been digitized yet. And in the Bay Area, in San Francisco, I'm pretty familiar with that. I've probably gone 100 times, and not only are there Native American census records. I've been learning a lot that people need to use in person to verify that they have an ancestor who was in the tribe, or for the tribe to verify that someone who's applying is a member. There are nitrate negatives that are very fragile of old films that are very important and cannot be easily transported. They might disintegrate. There are maybe, I think, 60 to 80,000 case files for immigrants and from 80 different countries, not just the Chinese exclusion files. There are records of Japanese picture brides, for example, who are immigrating during a period where it was difficult for Japanese men and women to come to this country. There are, I found Jews fleeing Nazi-controlled Austria and Germany, where they have gone to Shanghai and then to the U.S. And so we found their files where for example, a young woman named Rosa Ginsburg was coming to the U.S. and she was said she was going to get married, and the authorities asked, "Oh, so who are you getting married to?" "Oh, Herbert Klein. He's in New York." So they contacted Herbert in New York, and he said he wasn't exactly going to get married, but they're thinking about it, and back and forth. And then she finally is released, and because her family sent money, and then we said, well, if anyone knows what happened to Rosa and Herbert, please let us know, because we put this on the Angel Island website. And someone got back to us, and his name was Jeffrey Klein, and he said, "Oh, I'm Herbert and Rosa's son." And then his daughter, we also met his daughter. She was a cantor. She wrote a one woman play about her grandmother who was um, and he called it Shanghai Angel because she
Hmm.
came from the Jewish quarters in Shanghai to Angel Island and then on to New York. So she basically took the transcripts and turned them into a monologue as well as
Hmm.
songs. So things like that you just kind of can find by going through the actual physical documents and like looking at a box of a ship, for example, that
Mhm.
it's not easy to do at all. For the Chinese exclusion files, people have found um, wedding certificates or like a tablecloth that was um, created at a wedding with signatures and things like that, and very precious things that cannot be digitized easily. And the National Archives also have no plan to digitize them. So if they're locked up, sent in boxes, who knows where, and probably lost along the way, it would be a terrible loss for all genealogists and historians and any family members who might be want to look for them.
Right. And even if they are, shipped somewhere else, it could be years before they are able to be accessed again by the public, and probably not for somebody to physically go through them. It would probably be a send away and wait a year for
Right,
these records
right.
situation.
That
A,
that's
a lot
that
of people
happens
don't
now.
understand the slow rate that things are digitized
Yeah,
with the
and that
National
happens
Archives.
now. If you're
Yeah.
looking for a file, you have to file a request, you have to wait for it, and it could take, like you say, weeks or months or even years. People have been waiting that long. Another thing at the archives, both sites have real expert genealogists, archivists there. And
Yeah.
you can come in with a name and approximate time when your ancestor might have arrived. And if you can't, you might not find it online, they could say, well, ask you different questions. When did they come? What ship? And give you ship logs to look through. And then they'll say, oh, well, that's not here, but it's in this place. And if you request it there, and you can't do that if they're not physically somewhere where there's expert archivists behind it.
Right. There's just so much information that they've compiled over the years because there's so many people that have been working in that facility for like 20 years.
Right.
So it's such a shame that a lot of that knowledge will be lost forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
What, go ahead.
Oh, even if
Yeah.
I'm told that they're hiring people possibly in Kansas City, but we don't know if that's for this site or as well. Some people say, "Oh, well, I'll just wait for them to be digitized and I'll go look for them." But we don't have any faith in that because let's say, for example, the native archives in Anchorage, when National Archives shut down that location, they moved them all to Seattle, and they said, "Oh, we'll have them available for you, digitized and all this. So that was 14 years ago. And if you go to the National Archives site now and search for Anchorage digitization or something, there's a whole page explanation saying, oh, we didn't quite do what we said we would. We're still working on it. We shipped them all from Seattle to um, College Park, Maryland to scan, and we're better now, but we should not we should not have faith that that will happen. It's more important
Right.
if they're in the place now where they're accessible, just keep them there. In Seattle, when there was talk of shutting down that site and sending those items to Southern California, genealogists up there organized, and we all contributed letters, and um, they ended up keeping it there. They're closing the Federal Records Center, which are non-historic documents for the most part, and moving those elsewhere in the country, and actually digitizing a lot of that over time because those are items that don't need to be saved so much, like tax returns, right? We got a tour of San Bruno, and we were told, oh yeah, this is all going to be digitized and things like that. So that's not as important to genealogists, but Seattle's keeping the National Archives in Seattle, the archives items, and I understand they're building a new facility for them. So that's very, very important. You might hear my
Mhm.
cat.
That's okay. My dog's being remarkably quiet right now.
Okay, good.
So, with, one of the main things I think about with the San Bruno archives are the Chinese Exclusion Act files. Can you talk a little bit about what people could find in those files? I know you've done a lot
Sure.
of presentations about that too. I've seen a lot of them as well.
Yeah, yeah. In the background, I don't know if you can fully see it, but is what's called certificate of identity that's released for my grandmother when she left Angel Island. So there's duplicate sets of those, and you can actually physically hold them in your hand, um, which is really wonderful. There are case files and what are called A files or alien files, which um, the two of them can trace your ancestors' journey from arrival and occasionally rejection to a return visit. But for the most part, arrival in this country and then all the questions that they were asked, because during the Exclusion Act, it was very difficult to come in unless you could verify that you're the son or daughter of someone who was here, who was born here, or who was a merchant, or who yeah, those are some of the exceptions. Merchants, diplomats, travelers, students, and you had to confirm that you were a son or daughter of that person because of the restrictions, which said that Chinese laborers could not come in. A lot of times, Chinese wives of Chinese merchants, wives of those who were already here, could not come in either unless they could verify that they were actually married. That's why they had the wedding tablecloth and things like that in the archives. So sometimes those are a couple hundred pages because of the questions, maybe 10, 12, 20 pages, 50 pages of questions on this very, very fine paper. And you can actually go in there and see that, touch a document that your ancestor signed. I've touched a document that my great great grandfather signed to verify that his son was born in the US, and he was born in 1850. So, that's pretty precious to be able to do that.
Right. Absolutely. So, what prompted you to get so involved and start this petition on change.org and speak out about this? Were you just elected by peers, or were you just like, I gotta just get my voice out there about this?
Well, in 1998, the same thing happened. I believe all the regional archives were going to be shut down. And so people in the Bay Area organized. I wasn't even involved back then, but two women are like our founding mothers, basically, uh, Jeannie Lowe and Jenny Liu. Two very confusing names because they're so similar. But they worked with the local Congress members, who at the time was Tom Lantos and later Jackie Spear, to say this is precious to our history. If it's moved, we'll never see these documents. And also during, for a population that was affected by these discriminatory laws, the country owes it to us to at least make it available so we can learn about them. So Jeannie and Jenny got involved, and with Tom Lantos's help and other in Congress's help, they said, okay, we're going to keep these documents here. And then Jeannie and Jenny got the A files for people who had come into this country through the West Coast and had those moved from the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services files, and they're not really set up to be accessible archives because you have to send away for documents. You can't actually physically touch them, but they're all moved in 5-year chunks to the National Archives in San Bruno based on when people were born. So now they're up to birth dates before 1925, because that's 100 years ago. And in 2030, if all goes well, they'll move the batch from people born before 1930 and before. So Jeannie and Jenny were very successful. Jeannie and Jenny and their supporters in the Bay Area and national communities. And so that was supposed to be set. But now with the latest threatened closures, the two of them, Jeannie and Jenny said, "Oh, we're retired. We don't have time and energy. One's a new grandmother, one's take care of a sick spouse." And so they said, "Okay, it's up to all of you." And so we had meeting, and there a couple of us stepped up and said, "Okay, well, the we want to carry on your fight." And it's so important to the whole community that we want to get involved. So there's various networks of genealogists out here, and especially the Asian American community has gotten really involved because so many of our documents are there, but also Native groups have expressed interest, and we're starting to work with them. And San Francisco Board of Supervisors passed a unanimous resolution opposing it. And now we're starting to go to the elected officials, or we've been going to them past few weeks and trying to get them actively to oppose it. Our local congressman for San Bruno, Kevin Mullen, put out a piece with his tour of the center back in May, and with Stephanie Bayless, the director there, and said, Stephanie's showing me all the important documents here. And then he released the statement that he had concerns about the closure, about what will happen to the documents, but he didn't say this should not happen at all. And we're trying to get him to oppose it and uh, do things like I understand there's things he can do as a congressman for the district, like a congressional inquiry or things like that. So we're starting to encourage, advocate for more action, and get involved members of Congress who are on the committees that oversee the National Archives as well, the Appropriations Committee in the House, and starting to find people in our California Senate, California senators, as well as encouraging people around the country, tell your Congress member, especially if they're on those committees. And the National Archives, if you go on their site and search for congressional oversight, they'll have a list of all the committees that oversee the National Archives. There's like at least 2 in the House and at least 2 in the Senate. So we're learning a lot about how the House and Senate work these days.
Right. I am just starting to learn more about what's going on with all of this to figure out how I can help spread the word. And it was very telling that I was contacted by somebody who was an employee at the Chicago location and said that even as an employee, they have no idea what's going on. So that doesn't really instill a lot of confidence in me here. And I think I want to get as much, what's the word I'm looking for? just attention on this as I can. Promotion, that's what I was thinking, trying to think
Yeah.
of. Um, so what would you recommend people do if they want to get involved in this? I will link them to your change.org petition, but what else can people do to make a ruckus about this?
Okay. Well, actually, a long time ago in your interview, you asked
Yeah.
how do we know what's going to happen next, and um, one thing that we found online was the Government Services Agency, the GSA, posted a sources sought document that said, okay, here's the what we're looking for. We're looking for one or more moving companies to move like 1.6 million cubic feet of items from um, uh, San Bruno and Chicago to one of like 20 different sites. They're mostly federal record centers and one National Archives site. So that to me immediately shows that they have no intention of making them available because they're not going to National Archive sites. And then, and that move would start in September of this year and go for 3 years to September of 2029. And in an initial email to staff, Jay Trainer, the COO of the National Archives, said, um, I think it said we don't know exactly where they're going, but they will be closed, and we're sorry for the inconvenience, basically. So that got us really worried, and that this is there are no public hearings, there's no input from anyone, and that we should really get organized now. So you can go to our website, saveournationalarchives.org, and that has links to our petition. It has more information on the um, the closures in both San Bruno and Chicago. Chicago's organizing on their own. I don't know if they have a website yet, but we're trying to put as much as we can about Chicago on our site, including all the media that we're getting from them and posting it there. There have been a lot of articles. There was an op-ed in the or opinion piece in the San Francisco Chronicle talking about it. There are a lot of radio programs and podcasts like yours, and we're just trying to get the word out. So if people can write their or sign the change.org petition, and if you can't find the Chicago one, after you click on ours, just search on change.org for National Archives Chicago, and you'll come up with theirs. We both put them together about the same time, and we're trying to have a friendly competition on signatures, but both have over 2,000 right now. So
Yeah.
we're getting the word out. We also want people to contact their members of Congress, ideally, and locally, at least, we're asking for copies to be sent to Kevin Mullen, who is as I mentioned, the member of Congress for San Bruno. Um, I think I think we have his address as well as Ro Khanna's address on our site. He is our local member of the Appropriations Committee who has maybe a little more power than the average Congress member. We're looking at legal action as well. So um, we're talking to attorneys general in both sites, definitely in California, to try to get a temporary restraining order if possible. We'd like to stop, immediately. If they're going to start moving in September, we really have to do something in by August.
Mhm.
Um, we're trying to get Kevin Mullen to be more outspoken about this, as I mentioned, and to get him to actually stop this action. So a lot of things we're looking at, and right now it's we're getting ready uh, to take more action because, like I said, September's coming up really soon. If they're serious about moving, and who knows what they'll move first. I mean, people in the archives are told to get ready to pack things up, which is terrifying, of course. And once they're packed up and gone, we don't know when we'll see them again. You know, it's it's something that is of great urgency.
Mhm. I follow Rokana on TikTok, so maybe I will make a video and tag him in it
Yeah,
and see if I can get a response, get some more attention here.
that would be
Um,
great.
Please also email me any updates that I can help spread on because some of my social media channels are kind of on the larger side, so that would be helpful to get more eyes, maybe get a little more momentum. Before we finish up here, is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, I think it's a worthwhile concern that if these centers are closed, then any other National Archives center around the country could be closed. And, um, genealogists and historians have to be up in arms wherever you are, um, with the thought that history is being either not totally erased in this case, but hidden. If they're sent off somewhere and it's not easy to get access, this history will be erased. And so, um, even if you aren't from the Bay Area or Chicago, we really urge you to at least sign the petition. Ideally, contact your Congress member. They might not know what's going on, but if enough people call in, they'll pay attention. When we went to meet with Kevin Mullen's office, the staffer we were talking to had a folder, and he said, "Oh yeah, we're getting your letters." And so um, you could see that they're at least paying attention to it. There are a lot of other things going on in this world, in this country right now, but we think this is something that's if it's if we don't do something, that these documents will be lost, these items and this history will be lost.
Absolutely.
So I'll keep you informed with
Okay.
whatever happens, and you can give your updates to your viewers.
Yeah. I would love to get more momentum here and share as much as I can about this, and let's be loud about it. All right.
Yeah, let's be
Thanks so
loud.
much for joining me.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Graham.
Jan. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Take care.